Welcome to episode 13 of the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast. Joined by Director of Athletic Communications Larry Dealman and Student Assistant Connor Kukowski. This is Sports Information Director Andy Alvarez, bringing you news and results from this past week's action and previewing the week ahead in Immaculata Athletics. Both the men's and women's basketball teams were in action last week. The men's team played 2 games and the women's team played 3. The men's and women's track and field teams opened their seasons on Saturday on the road at the Alvernia Plex complex for the Rust Buster. Good term for a race that early in the season, wear off the rust, so to speak. And we'll have our guest this week will be Carly Coleman from the women's basketball team. She'll join us a little bit later in the show. Let's get things started with men's basketball.
Let's get into men's basketball. The men's basketball team, unfortunately, 2 losses this week. Both were close at certain points, but just did not go their way. So on Monday, December 1st, the Mighty Macs hosted Notre Dame of Maryland. That was a 102-93 decision in favor of the Gators. And on Wednesday, for the Widener doubleheader, with the women's team also. The men fell 91-77 to the Pride. So for the Notre Dame of Maryland game, Christian Chambers and Mandon Sipo each had 20 points. Kevin Tellisford with 11 off the bench. And then against Widener, Chambers had 15 points, Sipo 14, and Dylan Cruz and Dom Vacchiano each with 9 points for the Mighty Macs. Some good basketball overall at certain points. The Notre Dame game got away from them toward the very end, and the Widener game, the Pride jumped out to an early deficit, and it was just a hole that the Mighty Macs could not recover from. But this week, the men are off. They have no games this week, but they'll be back next week on Tuesday, December 16th, when they go to Elizabethtown for a 5 o'clock game. And as of this recording, the Blue Jays are receiving votes in the D3Hoops.com top 25 poll. But for the moment, guys, there were moments, but just did not go our way this week.
Yeah, for the most part, the Notre Dame game, they were in that in the first half. They were competitive and, they were hitting shots in the first half. And then somewhere, the shot stopped falling, a couple turnovers, and Notre Dame, to their credit, were quick and pushed the pace and really kind of at the end stole that game, just took it away from the Mighty Macs. And then Widener, their players just performed. And, we were talking with Coach Kyle the next day, and, he was explaining the different things, with us that were tough in that game. And, but there were good moments. Like anything, there were some good moments. You saw some good play out of guys, like Tellisford coming off the bench to get 11 points for the team. Chambers and Sipo, each getting 20 in that game on Monday. So there are good things and, things to look forward to. It's just a matter of, kind of fighting their way through a tough schedule and trying to build towards, conference play when they come back next month.
Yeah, I think the second halves are what's been getting the men's team a lot. I mean, it seems like every game is close at the half, and then the second halves just get away from us. And that, I mean, it's hard to explain like what exactly that could be, but like a lot of times with the 3-pointers, like they're just not going in. So like sometimes you can't always control that. But like, I mean, in that Widener game, we saw Sipo had that layup that cut the Widener lead a little bit, but it still wasn't enough. So like, Chambers had the 15 points, season high 13 rebounds, 2 blocks. The efforts there is just like something, and these are tough teams too. Like, so you always have to take that into consideration. But yeah, I think just plugging away is the biggest thing to say about men's team right now. All right, switching gears now, we are going to talk about track and field, which I was there for at the Alvernia Rust Buster this past Saturday. It was a good weekend overall for the Money Max as they just started underway here. So we had a couple of record breakers on for the women's side, the distance medley relay of Jayla Gross. Kimberly Alvarez, Jackie Leone, and Aubrey Donahue finished first place, new record of 13:41.86. In the 60-meter run, Brianna Caldwell, a freshman, finished ninth with a time of 8.76. Nora Rowe finished 11th with a time of 9.32, and Abby Friend finished 13th with a time of 10.13. For the mile run for the women's, Molly Wezalinko finished 6th with a time of 6:55.96, and Maddie McBride finished in 9th with a time of 7:29.45. In the 400, Samantha Rivera finished 6th with a time of 1:12.94. Nora Rowe finished right behind her with a time of 1:12.98. In the 800, Jackie Lillian finished first place with a time of 2:39.14. Jayla Gross finished second place with a time of 2:39.31. And Kimberly Alvarez finished sixth with a time of 2:55.07. 200-meter run, Jillian Humphreys, eighth with personal best, 29:25. Brianna Caldwell had ninth of 29:58. And Rivera in 13th as well. To the 5,000-meter run, this one was all the IU race, as everyone's called. It was only Aubrey Donahue and Brianne Dymick in this. Aubrey set a new first place time with a time of 18:52.20. That was a new IU record. She broke her own record from last year. And the 4x4 team of Abby Friend, Aubrey Bickford, Jillian Humphreys, and Samantha Rivera finished first place with a time of 4:48.43. We saw pole vault this week for the first time in a while here at Immaculata. Aubrey Bickford finished as runner-up, clearing 2.5 meters. Maddie McBride finished fifth with clearing 2.20 meters. The throws, we had Maggie Friend finished 10th with a throw of 7.53 meters. Jules Frederick finished ninth with a throw of 8.68 meters. And Joni Lauer finished 12th with a throw of 6.88 meters. Looking at some men's results, Jane Barksdale set a new IU program record. He finished in first place in the 16-meter with an IU program record time of 7.16 after he ran at 7.19 in the preliminary rounds. Yerlin Ortiz finished in first place in the 60-meter hurdles with an IU program record of 9.63 after running 9.78 in the preliminary round. Colin Corky in the throws finished in second place in the shot put and third place in the weight throw. And Immaculata had five athletes completing their first collegiate track and field event this past weekend. Looking at some of the other events, the DMR for the men's, they're right now 10 seconds off of the NIU program record. So that was Jimmy Lauer, Yerlin Ortiz, Alex Wilson actually didn't run that event because he's injured. Chris Watson and myself finished second with a time of 12:37.80. In the 200, Aaron Cuthbert finished 10th with a time of 24:22. Barksdale 11th with a time of 24:55, and Kellen Albus finished 19th with a time of 26.46. I can go on forever with these events.
You look at some of these things where you see some of these events, and like I said, I mean, early on, we said five, athletes in their first events in college events in men's. You had seven in women's making their debuts in this event, and putting up pretty good numbers considering their first collegiate indoor events. Women's team finished third out of six teams competing. Men's finished five out of seven. It's still a good start considering most of you came right from cross country a few weeks ago, right into the indoor season, and now you're going to get a break, but a chance to really train, I guess, for the next time you're back up there at the Plex Complex at the end of January at Alvernia. So I think a lot of good things to see as I was following the results throughout the day. Sorry, we had Alex Wilson listening, and they still had that in the results from the meet that he was in there. We'll get that updated, but he was in there, so we were following along with seeing good numbers coming in for our athletes was good, and then to see some records and a lot of people with top five performances in program history in some of those events too, some personal records. So I think it was a great first event for the team.
Yeah, a lot of great results for the Rust Buster. Obviously, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be everyone's best per se for the season. It's just to get back into the swing of things coming from cross country season, or for some athletes, it might be their first events of the year. So, a lot of great times, a couple record breakers, as we've said. I feel like I'm not done making Aubrey Donahue graphics this year. So, I'll probably be making a couple of those throughout the indoor and outdoor season, and maybe some other people can jump in on the party there. I could make some graphics for you guys too. So good start overall.
We'll head back up there in over a month now. January 31st is the next indoor meet. They'll go back to Alvernia for the Alvernia Puck Shootout. This, I would imagine, will be a much more intense race and a lot more bigger race. They definitely have more events than they did this past time. This was just a race to just get in and shake out the legs a little bit and get things rolling. So hopefully the momentum can continue as we get into the winter and eventually into the outdoor season.
Moving on to women's basketball. The Mighty Macs women's basketball team had a strong week, going 3-0 against MAC Commonwealth and MAC Freedom competition. On Monday, the Mighty Macs traveled to Alvernia as they took down the Golden Wolves 77-55. They used a fourth quarter surge, pulling away, outscoring Alvernia 23-4 in that final quarter. Olivia Etor was then a career high of 22 points, including 11 in the fourth quarter alone in that charge. Carly Coleman recorded her third straight double-double with 20 points and 13 rebounds. along with 4 assists and 3 steals for who will be our guest this week on the podcast. Riley Cassidy scored a season high 14 points, and Amy Grillo scored 11 points and added 7 rebounds, along with 5 steals. On Wednesday, Immaculata hosted previously unbeaten Widener at Alumni Hall. Widener still is receiving votes in the D3.com top 25 poll. The Mighty Macs defeated the Pride 75-52 using a strong third quarter, outscoring Widener 22-7 to pull away. Carly Coleman led the way for the Macs, scoring 21 points with 7 rebounds, a block shot, and 1 steal. Livy Etor scored 17 points, including a half-court buzzer beater to end the first quarter and a driving layup to beat the buzzer to end the second quarter, and added 4 steals. Abby Grillo, continued her outstanding first season, scoring 17 points, adding 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and Julia Pohl scored a buzzer-beating layup to end the third quarter as well. So that was actually 2 games in a row. Julia Pohl had a buzzer beater to end the third quarter up at Alverny on Monday as well. On Saturday, the Mighty Macs survived a fourth quarter surge by Misericordia to hold on for a 61-59 road win to complete the week 3-0. The Cougars used a 13-point run to tie the game at 54-54 with 3:14 left. On the next 2 trips down the court, Riley Cassidy and Sabrina Little each hit layups, and then Liv Etor, scored on a layup. That provided, what was the winning margin of points, got them Immaculata to 60 points. They were able to limit Misericordia to just a 2-point shot instead of a 3-point shot with only 5 seconds remaining. And then Sabrina Little was fouled on the subsequent inbound. It hit 1 or 2 free throws with only 2 seconds remaining, which did not leave enough time for Misericordia to get back up the court, so they were able to pull away with the win. Liv Etor led the way for Immaculata with another career high with 23 points, hitting 5 3-pointers, adding 5 rebounds and 3 steals. Coleman and Grillo each scored 11 points for the Macs. Sabrina Little scored on a real highlight play, a driving layup to beat the buzzer to end the third quarter. So that was all 3 games this week. They had a buzzer beater to end, buzzer beating layup to end the third quarters. Meg Robbins came up with a huge steal for the Macs with only a minute 37 remaining when the Macs were clinging to a 58-56 lead. So that was a real good defensive play there by Meg Robbins when they needed it. It's a great job by the women's team responding to the adversity to earn this win. Coleman and Etor were named to the weekly honor roll this week, and Etor was our Mighty Mac of the week. What did you guys think about the women's play this week?
Yeah, there were a lot of great moments this week. 3-0. I mean, you literally cannot do any better than that. It was good to see, especially against the tough conference like the MAC. And not only did they win in blowouts, but they also won in close game too at Misericordia. So it shows that they can win, whether it's the game is pretty much sealed in the last few minutes or the last few seconds. So it shows they can win in a variety of ways. And it was especially impressive against Widener, who they've been receiving votes in the D3Hoops.com top 25 poll. So the fact that they were able to give Widener their first loss, it was definitely interesting to see. And given the fact that I used to work at Widener, some of the girls that I remember were on the team, they're still there. The lack of Mia Robbins for Widener definitely hurt them in a way, but I think we were definitely able to keep up with them regardless, even if Mia had been playing. So a lot of great basketball this week, and we'll see how they can do against Albright on Saturday.
I think it's also a good thing too that like in that Misericordia game, like they had a lead, but they also got pushed in the end of that fourth quarter. And I think that's important as we get closer to conference play. A lot of these games, besides from like Arcadia and a few others, have been a lot of blowouts for our teams as they continue on throughout the game. So I think getting pushed is a big thing for our women's basketball team as they continue to work together with each other. Again, a young group this year, but like they're definitely hitting their mark and picking off right with the momentum they have last year, and hopefully they can continue into conference play.
Those are really good points, and there were a lot of different things about Saturday's game too. You're playing your third game in a week. That's never something. It's an easy thing for a team to play 3 times in one week. You go on the road, it's a long trip up there to Misericordia to Dallas, PA. Then something different. The MAC Freedom was having the double headers reversed. So the men's played the early game. The men's played the game at noon, I believe it was, or 1. And then the women's game were the game to follow. The men's game ran long. The women's game was slightly delayed. And that's something, our women's team doesn't really face a lot because we always have the doubleheaders with the women's play first, then the men. So it's a different preparation for a game like that. Your routines get broken when you switch things like that, where you go from having that long build up into the game like they normally would have, where you go out, you do your shoot around, you do your things, you go back to the locker room, you refocus, you go back out, take the court. Well, this time you're waiting around for the end of the game, and then all of a sudden that game's over, and you have to turn on the switch, and you have a 20-minute warm up to get ready without the build up. And I think that was something, that the team experienced last year in the tournament at Ohio Wesleyan in the NCAA tournament, where the game before then went to overtime and they're standing down there on the edge of the court waiting to take the court, waiting for that game. It was looking like it might go to a second overtime. And all of a sudden you got to flip the switch and be ready to play in a hostile environment. And so I think that was a huge, huge win to take that gut punch in the fourth quarter like they did and withstand it and fight back and walk out with the win. So the Mighty Macs will play their final home game prior to the holiday break on Saturday when they host Albright. This will be the only athletics event in the department this week, home or away. So that will be a game at 1 p.m. here at Alumni Hall. Hope everyone can, if they're still around, make it out. If not, please tune in to the live stream, and I will be on the call for that game. Looking forward to it. Albright handed us one of our 4 losses last year, so I know our team would love to hand them one back and return the favor. So it should be a good game. Now I think would be a good time to bring in our guest, and our guest will be Carly Coleman of the women's basketball team. Carly will join us when we come back after this quick break on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletic Podcast. And welcome back to the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics Podcast. We are joined by Carly Coleman of the women's basketball team. Welcome to the show, Carly.
Thanks for having me.
Carly, tell us about your journey to Immaculata. How did you end up choosing to attend and play at Immaculata?
So my brother's actually a junior here. He had not a heavy weigh-in, but an opinion about where I was going, and I was a little lost at the time. So I turned to him to talk to him about it. He recommended the basketball team was pretty good, and just the overall academics of the school, and I thought it was a good fit for me.
Yeah, it did seem like it was a good fit for you. That you actually came here and played another sport to start with as well at the same time. It allowed you to be a two-sport athlete your first year. Was that a factor in coming to Immaculata as well?
Yes, that was also a big one. I didn't want to give up soccer just yet. I came off a great season at O'Hara my senior year, and I loved and had a drive for both. And when I talked to Britt in the summer, or I guess early spring, about coming there, she said that the soccer coach would let me on the team. So that also had a heavy weigh in.
Yeah, I know how the sibling bonding goes here at the school because my sister transferred over here this year. So last season, you came in and joined an established team that had 3 standout seniors who won at the beginning of the IU careers, the championship, and a former Division I All-American from another sport, Alyssa Long from UNC, who played lacrosse there. So what was it like joining that group and the experience of last year's championship?
So something they all had in common was a work ethic and drive, and it was easy to build off that. Seeing them getting extra shots, extra reps, or just going hard every possession made me want to do the same, and they really pushed me to play the best of my ability last year. And I think just winning the championship with them was just an add-on. I mean, it created a memory that we'll have for a lifetime and be always able to look back at.
Looking at that season last year, only one game that you didn't start last year was the very first game because you just played a playoff game earlier that week, a couple of days earlier. But you came in and just missed a double-double in your first game, and then you've been a starter ever since. How has that felt just to be able to step in and contribute right away like that?
It's a great feeling, definitely because that means they were able to rely on me and they thought I was a reliable player to be on the court at the time. And I think just having that gives me confidence as well. So it just fueled me for the rest of the season.
This season, you have some players back. You're back. Livy Tor's back. Meg's back. Riley's back. But for the most part, it's a new group. And as a sophomore, you are part of the leadership group of this team. What has that experience been like for you to be able to step into a leadership role so soon in your career?
I think it brought out a side of me I didn't really know I had. Looking back at last year, I'm just taking what they did to us, making sure the team's flowing, hanging out, getting extra reps, like I said, just making sure everybody's on the same page and willing to put in the work ethic it takes to go back to back.
What's it like overall being a dual sport athlete? Last year you did soccer, and especially with the seasons too, obviously going from a fall sport like soccer to the winter. So it's like bang, bang right in a row versus some of our athletes do maybe a fall and a spring sport. So what's it like having sports like in back-to-back seasons?
It was challenging at times. There was times where I didn't have to, or I wasn't allowed to go to basketball because I had soccer practice or I had a game, so I couldn't give all my energy at basketball. I would definitely recommend it though. It's something that I don't regret it. I kind of did miss it, but I was just took the next step in my basketball career and wanted to focus more on it. So as hard as it was to give it up, I don't regret it.
Now, are you planning to return to soccer next year?
At the moment, I'm not. My friends do want me to, but I don't think that's in the cards right now.
So last week, your team went 3-0 with a big road win on Monday, a victory over a previously unbeaten Weiner on Wednesday. You guys now have back-to-back wins to them this season and last season. And then you had a gritty win at Misericordia. So that was a little of a tough match toward the end. So how was the team able to fight your way through such a challenging stretch? And as we continue on here with Albright coming up on Saturday.
Just relying on each other is a big part of it. Trusting people that are going to knock down shots. Liv caught hot in that Misericordia game, so we knew who to give the ball to. Yeah, I just think it's relying on one each other and being able to give the extra time it takes each game, each possession.
Do you guys have any techniques you talk about with like team chemistry or like communication that you work on at practice to like put onto the court?
We do communication drills and whatnot, but I just think it's bigger than just the ball on the court. In the locker room, we're always talking, hanging out. We have a big freshman group, but they're full of energy. They keep us really entertained. It's just a great group of girls, and I think that reflects how we play on the court, is our bond off the court.
After the holiday break, you guys open conference play at Newman on January 7th. And as the defending champs, you guys have a target on your back. So, what do you think the team's going to need to do to be successful this year in Atlantic East Conference play?
We acknowledged that target early on in the year. We've not forgotten about it. We know it's still there, but we moved on because it's a new season. We know we have to get better each day, like I said, at practice, extra reps and whatnot. I just think it's, grinding out the season will be key. Being successful in the AC is hard. It's a great conference to be a part of, but I just think it's, again, those extra reps and extra time on court together will make us successful.
One thing I've noticed over the last couple of years is I broadcast the games, and I was fortunate enough to be with the team on the trip to Ohio Wesleyan last year. You don't seem to be too fazed by the moments, like whether it be playing at the Palestra against a Division One team like Penn, or going into a tough game in a national tournament in a hostile environment versus Ohio Wesleyan, or playing tough minutes in big games. It doesn't seem to faze you. How do you think your experience playing in the Philadelphia Catholic League has prepared you for these type of moments in college?
I was just gonna say, I think my high school created those tough games for me. It was something I was introduced to really early on. I watched many, I mean, freshman year I didn't really play at O'Hara, but I watched Division I athletes play against each other. I practiced against them in practice. And I always think, me and my mom always say that like I've always played my best when the court is like bigger and like there's a more light on us, I guess you could say, like the team's better and whatnot. I just think it's the drive that those Division I athletes at O'Hara put in me was to shine in the bigger moments.
Thank you for joining us today, Carly, particularly during this busy finals week. I wish you good luck with your finals, and we look forward to seeing you play in the team on Saturday when you guys bring Albright in. So thank you again for stopping in and talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll be back after this quick break on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletic Podcast. Welcome back to the Tuesday Talk IU Athletic Podcast. Well, that'll about wrap things up for this week's show. Join us next week for episode 14, which will be the final show before the holiday break. After the holiday break, we will return on Tuesday, January 6, 2026 for episode 15. Thanks again for tuning in, and roll Max.